Hi, I'm Jim Kleiber, the chapter chair of the MIT Enterprise Forum in New York City. Tonight's program was patent liquidity. We had a panel that approached that subject from a couple of different angles, and I thought really did a great job. This year has been a fantastic year in the world of patents. We've had some amazingly huge transactions, the largest transaction ever, $4.5 billion transaction from the Nortel bankruptcy. We've had a major change in the patent law, and the Supreme Court has looked at all kinds of new patent cases that usually they're frankly not interested in. And so we thought that this subject was really, it was time for a subject like this for the MIT Enterprise Forum, and I think it really worked out well. And thanks everybody for coming. Cheers. He's got a degree in molecular biophysics, and so you can ask him about that. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it sounds pretty impressive anyway. Next to my right is Richard Wiseman. He is one of the board members, actually, of the MIT Enterprise Forum. He's president and founder of Intellectual Corporation. He sold his first patent portfolio for $35 million, and that is now controlled by Intellectual Ventures. His second portfolio he recently sold to RPX, and he's developing, among other things, a fair pay, which is a method of monetizing digital offerings. So he's definitely got the perspective of someone who has successfully monetized his IP assets. Next to him is Kevin Barheit. He's the vice president and head of acquisitions for RPX. Before that, he was vice president and head of acquisitions for Intellectual Ventures. And before that, he was a consultant at McKinsey. So he's, from the patent aggregators standpoint, he's going to be our anchor in that sense. Next to Kevin is Sean Peace. He is a CEO of the Royalty Exchange, which is a way of maximizing liquidity for copyright royalties. This was sort of an outgrowth of a similar business called SongVest, which allowed people to purchase shares of music royalties as memorabilia, which I think is a very interesting concept. And before that, he was involved, in fact, he was the founder of Falconer Incorporated and has been involved with Route 19, TriNet, and SAS. And finally, all the way down at the end, is Charlie Falwasser. He's general counsel of Corky Incorporated. Before that, he was vice president and IP counsel of Barclays Capital, and before that had a similar role at Lehman Brothers, and before that was an IP attorney at Clifford Chance. So with that, I'm going to allow Jorge to take my place up here and give his presentation. So let me just back up. And let's get you up here. You probably recognize it.
All right, well, Jim, thanks for the introduction, and I got to say I'm especially thankful for the opportunity to speak to this group because I have absolutely no formal affiliation to MIT. So as Jim mentioned, I did my undergraduate work at Yale in molecular biophysics and biochemistry, been an IP attorney since 2002, including stint at the Federal Circuit. That Jim mentioned. These days, however, I work for a firm called Silas Capital, which provides venture capital to branded consumer products companies. What I'm going to talk about today has nothing to do with what I do day to day at Silas Capital, but if you're an entrepreneur and you're building a brand around a consumer products company, and especially if you're seeking financing, let's talk after the program. What I'm going to talk about today relates better to my affiliation with the Kauffman Fellows Program, which is a 20-year-old educational and leadership development program for people who are working in the venture capital industry. And as part of that program, I'm working on a field study that is trying to assess the relative merits of various ways of investing in IP. And along the lines, in the summer of 2007, I started to try to come up with a framework for venture investment in intellectual property. Along with that, I'm pretty passionate about fostering entrepreneurship in the IP space. And so I really see this as an opportunity to encourage the entrepreneurs in the room, as well as the investors, to consider taking a look at what's going on in the IP space with an aim of building new companies. And hopefully by the time that I'm done, you'll get a better sense of what I mean. So as I mentioned, I started to try to think about a framework for venture investment in IP, and it really starts with what I think are three key trends that are shaping evolution of the intellectual property sector. There are possibly more, but I think these are the three trends that we ought to focus on. Fragmented IP rights, big data, and the convergence of intellectual property and finance. I only have enough time today to talk about fragmented IP rights as a trend and how it relates to entrepreneurship, but if you want to talk about big data or convergence, I'm happy to do that as well. So fragmented IP rights, I think, is the natural result of complexity around technology and the componentization of the design process, such that the most valuable consumer electronics, for example, have, by some estimates, 250,000 patented inventions in them. And so this is a picture of a smartphone that someone has taken the back off of. 250,000 patent inventions in a smartphone means that no single company, or even group of companies, can own all the valuable patented inventions, patentable inventions in that product. And so what results, this slide, this slide's on its side, but it still demonstrates the point, okay? This is a patent landscape that was produced by a company called Ambersite out of Sydney, Australia. They're a patent analytics company. What this slide, when it's right side up, shows is the relationship between the top 16 litigated technologies in the smartphone wars. And everyone knows what I'm referring to, right? In this group, I hope, by smartphone wars. The top 16 litigated technologies and the companies, the top 5 companies that own them. Each dot there represents a single patent. What's important, I think, in this slide is that when you look across technology to technology and you look at the top 5 owners, they're all different from technology to technology. So this is a very good graphical representation of what I'm talking about in the fragmentation of IP rights. And so the natural consequence of that, of course, is lots and lots of litigation. So those of you who have been following the smartphone wars have probably seen this, what I call it the spaghetti bowl model of patent litigation. This is a graphical representation of the companies that are suing each other in the smartphone wars. And I think if you follow the sort of trends around technology and IP, you have to come with this outcome of litigation that looks like this. So as an IP lawyer, as a patent litigator, I look at this and I think, gosh, is there a better way to go about this? Is there something society should do to perhaps result in less investment in wasteful activity like litigation? Now, I know I've said something controversial because all the patent litigators in the room, I can tell who you are, you just blanched. So cover your ears for the rest of my presentation. If you talk to venture capital investors, especially those that have investments in software-based companies, kind of like John Doerr, or you talk to some of the folks who are really involved in early-stage web investing, their response is, let's go to Congress and get Congress to eliminate software patents. If you talk to many entrepreneurs, they want to go so far as to possibly eliminate all patents. And a lot of the mind share around what to do about this, as you all know, revolves around patent reform, legislation through Congress. And as a patent insider, I kind of look at this as curious, given that investors like John, Fred, and Brad Feld have been involved in building some of the most successful technology enterprises of our generation, for sure. And I also know that sometimes, if not all the time, as Jim alluded to, patent reform legislation creates more problems than it solves. And in fact, shortly after the AIA was passed, the New York Times ran an article reporting that there was a spike in demand for patent lawyers. Not too surprising to me, but certainly something that sort of reinforced my intuition that entrepreneurship was perhaps a better solution to this than was patent reform. And so, as you can guess, I think entrepreneurship in the IP sector is something that we should support as investors, as service providers, as fellow entrepreneurs. And this slide shows 3 companies that I think are venture-backed, for sure, at different stages, and that are worth knowing about. The one I like to talk about the most is RPX. I'm not going to go into how their model of defensive patent aggregation deals with this. But I will say that I like to talk about it because it's a great success story from a venture capital perspective. By some reports, one of the early backers of RPX realized between a 13 and 15 times return on its investment. When you look at that in the current environment where a lot of venture capital investors would be happy for a 2x, a 3x, or possibly even a 4x return, that is utterly amazing. And to me, a strong signal for the potential in this space. So if that's not enough, the potential to create large amounts of wealth around innovation in IP, I think innovation is important because NPEs are innovative. So this is a slide that was prepared by my friend Peter Holden at Collar Capital. And what it is sort of a graphical depiction of the taxonomy of companies that are acquiring patent portfolios for various purposes. On the x-axis, if you go all the way to the left, you have companies that are acquiring for more operational reasons, typically to commercialize or to provide some type of business solution. If you go on the opposite end, the far right of the x-axis, you have companies that are acquiring because they're trying to generate financial returns through licensing and enforcement. And if you look on the y-axis, the companies at the top are adopting or pursuing a more offensive strategy, while those at the bottom are pursuing more of a defensive strategy. What's very striking to me as a biologist of NPEs is the biodiversity in the upper right quadrant. Each of these circles represents a different entity out there acquiring patents, using a different model, but they're all mainly in the quadrant where their model is primarily offensive and motivated by the desire to generate financial returns. And likewise, what is just as interesting is if you look at the quadrant where RPX sits, there's not as much biodiversity. So what I think this tells us is that that quadrant represents an entrepreneurship white space, or if you're an investor, a venture capital white space into which there is a lot of potential for business model innovation and wealth generation. We can talk at length about the different models that might fall out of that, but hopefully at the end of the day I will have encourage you as an investor or an entrepreneur to try to populate this end of the ecosystem with a lot more companies that are innovating along with RPX. As I said, I didn't have time to go into all the different forces that I think are shaping the IP markets. I published an article in IAN, Intellectual Asset Management magazine, that's already out there. I have one coming out, the Kaufman Fellows Report, this month. I blog from time to time at non-billables. And please stay in touch. I tweet at Jorge M. Torres. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for the introduction and
That should be a fun panel. What? Oh, it's not. Okay. So what I'd like to do is basically give you a report from the trenches on the sell side as an inventor and entrepreneur. And basically it's an example of a fortunate odyssey through the Kafkaesque wonderland of patents, and I put as many metaphors as I could on that. So, and the slide basically represents me surrounded by the various players I dealt with as I monetized my patents. And it is a continuing but okay. I'll try to okay, so to give you a little bit of background, there's a blog post that I did. A blog post that I did a few years ago that basically summarizes my first portfolio in the Intellectual business and how it produced patents and monetized them. And this I think will be online, so the link will be there if you want that detail. But basically, around '94, I came up with an idea that I thought was very valuable for an approach to a new kind of online services based on smart clients. PCs were just coming online in those days. It would basically included what came to be known as push technology, which got about around '96. And so I decided to create a new platform business to develop software and services for push technology. And I decided to apply for a patent first because I thought it could be a raging business and the patent would be protection. At the same time, I had in mind that I'm going to be investing a lot in this business, and if it failed, the patent was sort of a plan B that at least maybe I can salvage a patent if the business doesn't succeed. So effectively, I became a practicing entity from '94 to '96, a teleshuttle business, which had some success, but basically ran out of funds in a very dynamic market around '96. And so I shifted to my plan B, which was developing the patents. And that eventually came through 12 years later. So to give you a feel for how that happened, it maybe gives you some feel for what's involved in monetizing patents. I realized when I learned that my patents were being allowed that this is a complex, difficult business with big players on the other side. I needed a white knight, a company that knew the space, to help me figure out how to monetize these patents. So I evaluated probably half a dozen or more companies to in depth and ended up doing a deal with BTG International, which at the time was one of the leaders in the space, listed on the London Stock Exchange. They had significant expertise. They had the funding to deal with the kind of work that you need to do to monetize patents effectively. And so we did a deal that was an exclusive license for them to commercialize it in return for a revenue share. And the initial phase of that, they got involved in filing a bunch of continuations, which was based on the fact that the first patent I had was interesting, but the claims were limited. But by filing continuations, we could get much stronger patent coverage over a variety of aspects of what I had invented. So I started working with them, and after a while we sort of ultimately got into litigation, which has sometimes been referred to as the sport of kings because it's expensive and very high stakes. We started out trying to do friendly licensing. In 2003, we had gotten several patents that we thought were important, talked to Microsoft, Apple, and 2 other companies, and after a year of back and forth meetings, we basically had some small offers and others saying go away or sue me. So it was obvious that the only way we were going to monetize these patents for any reasonable amount was to sue them. So in 2004 we did, to Microsoft and Apple, and we went through the discovery phase where you give them all your files and lawyers look into their data. We got into the Markman stage hearings, which is the first of 2 parts in a patent suit where You work with a judge to figure out exactly what it is that the patent covers, because the claims are very ambiguous and subject to interpretation. And got into depositions where I was deposed several times by both Microsoft and Apple, which is a pretty grueling personal assault, especially when you have skin in the game. But by the end of 2005, we felt we were looking pretty strong. We were happy with how things were going, but we were still very far apart in terms of the settlement talks. So basically it was an agony and ecstasy kind of a problem. There was potentially a huge win down the road, but lots of grueling work, trial and potentially appeals, and the risk that at any time the other side would come up with some obscure prior art that would invalidate the patent. So it was, kind of a very difficult situation for a small company and an individual investor. So that's where Intellectual Ventures came to the rescue. And if you consider BTG to be my white knight, I would say IV was my fairy godmother, because it was basically a magical resolution to this dilemma with a very creative win-win deal, which I think was the first of its kind, where they structured and brokered an arrangement where an LLC would buy the patents with the upside potential of licensing them to other people. IV would control the LLC, and the investors in the LLC would get rights to a portion of the upside. So that was sort of a win-win deal. We got $35 million plus a share of future profits, but I want to emphasize that the lawyers in BTG got the lion's share of that. But I'm not complaining. I did pretty well also. So it ended up being, and anybody who's considering litigation, you've got to have a lot of intestinal fortitude. This was much less than what we might have wanted a trial, easily 10 times as much if we wanted a trial, maybe 20 times. But we did it as reasonable compensation, and it was a happy, quick end to a very long ordeal. So that was one way to monetize patents. Then I had a second portfolio, which was in the search area, basically social search. And that was a more rational path. In case RPX is called Rational Patent Exchange or something. I'm not sure what the X is. But I had 4 patents that were filed in 2000, issued in 2005 to 2008. And I actually started working with BTG on it, but they returned them to me because their business objective shifted and they weren't interested in the internet space anymore. So I continued the prosecution and got patents. In 2009, I realized there was some evidence of use, which I had sort of been looking for, but was a little hard to find, but then suddenly I found it. And I got some partners involved informally. We approached RPX, and within 5 months from finding evidence of use, we had closed the deal to sell the patents to RPX. So that's obviously a much more rational, friendly way to monetize patents. It doesn't get the kind of premium that you get when you go through litigation, but with a lot less risk and trauma in the process. So that's basically my experience, just to sort of quickly summarize the lessons. Expect lots of changes and reversals. It's a very crazy business, things change, so hedge your bets. At the very beginning, make sure you've got a very rich patent disclosure, and when you get your patent, be sure to keep the case open, because a lot of people let it close and you end up really cutting off your options if things change and you need to fine-tune your claims and the market changes. And you definitely have to partner unless you're a very unusual inventor, and choose your partners with great care, because things change, priorities change, and it's a very tricky business. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jim, and thanks all for having me. Just for the record, neither Jorge or Dick are on the RPX payroll. Made it seem like such. No, it's great to be here. It's always good to talk about the space with a diverse set of individuals who definitely can speak to kind of the real world experiences of the world of the IT space or of the IP space. So let me talk a little bit about RPX. And we'll save a lot of time for questions. RPX was founded a little over 3.5 years ago. And we were founded to focus on what we refer to as patent risk solutions for our clients. We are now a public company with 112 clients all throughout the information technology sector. And the company was originally founded to address this problem right here. And what this problem shows you is, it shows the growing cost of NPE litigation. But I'd focus on one thing here. Focus on the colors a little bit, but focus on the bottom half of this slide. The legal fees. Again, this is what will build on Jorge's point and beat up on patent litigation counsel. But the problem with this market is there's no, it's the single market, it's the only market that leverages litigation to set the price of an asset. And that brings with it a ton of inefficiency. And so that's where RPX comes in and where we're trying to address the problem. Just to be clear, there's a lot of, Jim talked about this earlier, about quote-unquote patent trolls. We don't actually use the pejorative term because we don't have a problem with what NPEs do. We fundamentally feel that they've purchased an asset, they've made an investment, and they should be able to monetize it. What we have a problem with is the inefficient way that they go about monetizing it, where more money is paid to attorneys than ever exchanged between parties. So where we step in is what this graph shows you is what usually happens is NPs deploy what we refer to as a divide and conquer strategy. So they'll step in with their patent and they'll assert against many operating companies, and what they're trying to do, which, oh, by the way, American Invents Act just made it a lot easier for them to do, is to pick off individual operating companies and not allow them to gain the efficiencies of working together. So what we have done is we've stepped in, and what we're working towards is we've stepped in between the non-processing entities and the operating companies, and our clients pay us an annual subscription fee. And for that subscription fee, we clear risk in the market. So we buy patent portfolios outright that are available for sale that otherwise would have been litigation threats for our clients. And we also buy license rights to patents that are actually in litigation against our clients. We also, one of our stronger services we provide beyond just the acquisition and the aggregation of assets is really kind of providing intelligence on the marketplace. Again, another fundamental problem with this market is the lack of transparency and the lack of available data. So that is where we are stepping in and providing that for our clients. So ultimately, what we're driving towards, and we think we've proven out already in just 3.5 years, is the need for a trusted market intermediary to sit here, to give people like Dick the opportunity in the patent market when he has an invention, he and his company have an invention, to have an efficient way to sell their portfolio, to monetize their assets, give operating companies an efficient way to clear it, and hopefully reduce litigation costs overall. So, in sum, what we're really trying to build is we're just trying to build this comprehensive network where we can bring a lot more efficiency to what otherwise is a very inefficient marketplace. With that, I will hand it off. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. I'll work my magic here, such as it is. All right. This is you.
Thanks for the invitation to come and speak to you all today. I'm definitely not a copyright lawyer or patent lawyer, or don't have any legal background at all. In fact, I hire a whole bunch of lawyers that charge me an exorbitant amount of money to show you what I'm going to tell you today. So there are some lessons learned in that one. And what I'm here to talk to you a little bit about is maybe a little bit more sexy than some of the stuff that, well, quirky is going to tell you about some real cool stuff. But we're really at least a startup company, although I've been doing SongVest, selling royalty streams or musical streams of income as memorabilia for the last several years. We came up with an idea middle of last year because we figured out that the market was not efficient in just memorabilia or allowing artists to be able to sell some revenue streams and get basically cash out. We found out that there is a huge market for people who are songwriters, producers, or anyone that owns an income stream from a musical asset or entertainment asset, that there was inefficiency for them to get liquidity as well. In fact, the best thing that they could really do was to go out and get a loan, and maybe that loan would cover a year's worth of royalties or a year and a half worth of royalties. And unless you're someone like the Beatles, where Michael Jackson can come in and buy your catalog for a couple $1 million, 90% of the market is left out of that, and there is no efficient exchange, even on that level, for people to buy and sell these income streams. So what we created was really a brand new exchange for royalties. Now this is focused on what we know. We know music, we know entertainment. So this is where we're starting, although in kind of our due diligence before we started the company, we had a lot of folks come to us and say, hey, there's patent and trademark income that people would love to get some liquidity around. There's pharma royalties. There's a whole bunch of different types of royalty streams that we might look to in the future. But what we're focusing on right now is just an exchange. It's an online auction that allows anyone that has an entertainment royalty stream to come to us. As long as we can go to whoever's paying that royalty stream and create an assignment, which gives us the direct payment, then we allow them to carve a percentage of that off or sell it holistically. And we take that, package it up, try and put a repeatable process around it. So we're also in the process of formulating almost like a Moody's rating system that gives investors transparency and repeatability. So I can look at, say a rap star Rodney O auction compared to Eric Benet catalog and say, how can I value these things comparatively? Because as you know, these are very long royalty streams. I mean, this is life of the author plus 70 years, depending on when the copyright was actually implemented. So it's kind of a unique market. Again, no one's ever done anything like that. It is a true alternative investment. So not only are we talking about just creating liquidity for copyright holders, but it is a true alternative investment, meaning the ups and downs in the market are irrelevant to kind of the digital sales of a particular album or a particular songwriter. So it is an alternative asset that we're looking at, and we're a one-stop shop. So we're not like eBay, just put two people in a room and hope that they can create a transaction at the end. We do all of the legal paperwork to complete the assignments, take down the transaction. We also act as a central point of, not a central point of contact, but as an aggregator of these royalties, because these royalties could be paid by multiple institutions. So we collect all of those royalties, take a small management fee, and then push that out to the buyers. And they have a dashboard that they can log into and see all of those investments. The opportunity, and you may not know this, is pretty big. $10 billion gets collected and distributed annually worldwide. This is just in music and publishing, so publishing can also include some book publishing. So the opportunity is pretty big. Just in the U.S. alone is $2 billion. Our research says that between 80 and 90% of that is paid to people who are making under 75, and some say would say under $50,000 a year. So there's a lot of folks out there that need this kind of liquidity. So the other thing that we're looking at doing is creating a secondary market, because right now, because of what our lawyers come back and tell us, we can only do one-to-one transactions, so that's one royalty stream to one person. We can't split that up. I can't take someone's song and split it up to 1,000 people. But we are looking to do that in a secondary market once we kind of grow and we'll either partner with a broker-dealer or figure out a way in which to allow folks to actually split this up into thousands of pieces. Do have some experience when we created SongBest. I did file, for example, a provisional patent, went through a prior art search, and went through all of that. Very active in the entrepreneurial community where we actually talk a lot about whether we should get patents or not. So I do have some experience in that as well that I hope to put in the patent. That's it.
Okay. This is now we're going to have a little bit of a sort of a sea change, I think, in presentation because Charlie's got toys, so and only one slide. All right, you want to do it? Yeah. Okay, let's do the video first. I'll just bring it up and I'll press play. Yeah, it's already started. Okay. No volume either. I can mess with it. Stop. So it's down here. Is it like 70 speakers? I mean, at the very least, we should be doing it at first.
Yeah, it looks like the volume's on the computer. The output's in the audio focus.
Yeah, you may have to, just hold it up. You can, this is. We got everything.
Is there a patent lawyer in the house?
This is technology, it's rare.
I think we should sue. If you plug the speaker wire into that, you're probably... Stop.
Let's try it. Oh.
It's time that we make invention accessible. It's time He isn't born in the boardroom, it's born in the living room. It's born on the drive home.
Just before I start, I'm not going to talk about patents or copyrights or any of that stuff. I'm talking about stuff like this. So this is the end product. I'm just going to play a quick video that gives you an idea of Quirky. Some of it is a little outdated, so I'll speak to that afterwards, but this is the best way to get a general idea of what Quirky is, so just let it roll.
We, as a people, must invent. Not because we need to find new ways to make money or to showcase our intelligence, but because it's part of who we all are. We get trains and we start building planes. We get computers and we want to make them personal. We get the internet and we want it faster. We as humans always expect better and are always thinking about what's next. But for centuries, the chances of you successfully inventing a product have been just about as slim as becoming an Olympic athlete, astronaut, or movie star. How can something so intrinsic to who we all are, and so important to moving our world forward, be so damn hard? It's time that we make invention accessible. It's time that we invent together. A product at work isn't born in the boardroom, it's born in the living room. It's born on the drive home. It's bred by people of all walks of life submitted to our website. Very simply, what problem are you trying to solve, and how do you intend to solve it? This ain't no lottery, and it's definitely not a game of luck. Ideas are rated, sorted, voted, enhanced, and refined by your peers, clearly surfacing the top 10 invention ideas every single week. Never before have average folks at home worked side by side with an award-winning design team. The folks we have on staff here at Quirky come from the top design consultancies in the world, Ivy League schools, and top consumer brands. The top 10 ideas are put through a rigorous analysis, something we call DMV. Design, market, and viability. Processing each idea on each one of these criteria and putting it through a good old-fashioned debate. The top 2 inventions of the week are identified. 2 brand new inventors are crowned, and we thrust into work. From the moment an idea is submitted to the moment we're done, our process breathes new meaning into the word collaborative. An idea moves through a handful of phases to get from pipe dream to finished product. In every phase of development, whether it be doing research, picking colors, finding features, materials, and the name of our products, the community submits ideas, our design team puts in their 2 cents, and we talk it out until we move forward with the best course of action. We design products with consumers, for consumers, and we do not take that mission lightly. Quirky's something like a machine. Our machine doesn't run on oil or electric. Ours runs on good old-fashioned passion. Passion for great products brought to life by an entirely design-centered process. We spare no expense in getting things right. We involve not only expert designers, researchers, engineers, and our inventor, but tens of thousands of average people around the world that are representative of the marketplace. Our facility allows us to prototype products the old-fashioned way, or with some of the most state-of-the-art 3D printing and micro-manufacturing technology. Failure is a crucial part of success at Quirky. Quirky is just as powerful in killing good ideas as it is in pushing great ones forward. Unlike consumer product companies of centuries past, we're not tuning our own horn or banging our own drum. We want to know the truth. We want to know what sucks and what doesn't. One of the final tests that a Quirky product goes through is real market testing. Our products launch on Quirky.com complete with specifications, a prototype, images, and something we call threshold. A threshold is the number of units a product needs to sell in order to receive the green light. Once we sell enough product to move forward, on we go to manufacturing. Consumers will receive the products in a matter of months. When it comes down to the details of execution, Quirky is as serious as it gets. From patents to mechanical engineering, material science, cutting hardened steel tools, operating world-class molding, stamping, assembling QA facilities. The Quirky team handles all the logistics, and yes, foots the bill. For as long as we can remember, a company becoming successful meant the lining of the pockets of a lucky few. At Quirky, interests are completely aligned with our customers and our inventors. If we're successful, so are you. Throughout the entire development process of our products, we keep track. We track, down to the fraction of a percentage, how much of an impact each community member had over the successful development of a product. Every time one unit of a product sells, all of the people who are involved get paid. Our commitment to transparency follows through to no end. You can jump on Quirky at any time and see, down to the minute, how sales are doing. Handling everything from court management to cookie carriers, every product we make represents its own challenges, opportunities, and its own story. With our constantly growing list of retail partners, press and media partnerships, and our insane brand messaging, products that make it through the Quirky process are seeing great success. Whether it be Michael Kubata's Space Bar, Andrea's Strainer Bowl, Jake's Power Strip, or Judy's Spoons, average people with way above average ideas are now becoming
zero participation in making that video, but I'll take the applause. Sorry, how do I get to the slide? Oh, there we go. So, I'm just going to use this as a guide to kind of give you a very brief explanation, also bring up the website. Some of these steps in the process have been refined, but the basic idea is we have a community of users. Some users are more focused on adding to ideas that have been submitted. Some actually submit. What happens is ideas come in, the community has at it for a while. At a certain point, that idea is ripe for consideration by the quirky staff. We look at the ideas, we decide which ones are going to go to the weekly evaluation process. That select few then get discussed by the company as a whole in one meeting at the end of the week. We pick a few from that actually get the further design process. During the design process, as the phases go forward in design, it's open again to the community to comment on different steps of progress. So we'll have maybe multiple different concepts that have been worked out by design staff that goes up on the website. The community has input into that. We'll get past that point. We'll have a phase for finish, color, materials, and so forth. That goes up to the site. That receives community input, so on and so forth. Eventually, the rendering and prototyping is complete. It gets launched on the website for another open phase. In the video, it talks about this pre-sale threshold. We've refined that process a little bit more, and I'll actually show you how it works. We call it the pricing game. It's a process that we use that gauges what the consumer's demand is, what they think it should cost, and so forth. That actually gives us more meaningful information, because then when we speak with retailers, we can say, look, this is what the market is saying they're going to pay for this product, and that helps us in a discussion and helps us also decide if it's economically feasible to make that product. If the product gets the green light after that process, we go to manufacturing. All our manufacturing currently is done in China. It's outsourced. That may change over time. Right now, we're just trying to pay the bills. So manufacture in China, and then we either sell direct on our website or we sell through bricks and mortar retailers and e-commerce retailers. So that's the gist. Let me just give you an idea of kind of what these things look like. Oh, of course, the most important part I forgot. The users in the community are paid a royalty of actual sales that take place. So they're not just kind of giving us stuff generously. It's part of the terms of use. It's a contract with the users. Based on their amount of influence into a product that we track, they get paid a % of sales. I can talk about that in more detail if people are curious. The nice thing about a startup, my email address is my first name. Didn't work. So doesn't make a difference anyway. So this is what it looks like if you want to submit a product. Very simple, just as you saw. What's your idea? What's the problem you want to solve? What's your solution? What's the key features? What's out there? It goes up on the site for a certain amount of time, receives community input, eventually it goes into consideration by the staff. That's kind of what this looks like. So you'll have products that are up and you can sort them how you want. They'll either end soon, means they're no longer subject to being under consideration. They can be marked under consideration. That means that they'll be considered by the quirky staff at eval, or not. It'll be considered for eval, and they go to eval. That's what that looks like. Upcoming, this is where the pricing game is. This is kind of like that pre-sale period. So this is the latest product that we launched, and you can play the pricing game if you want. For example, this one right here, this is an herb stripper. And actually, this is an example. I'd say that the most of the product submissions we get are at a very, very early stage in the innovation process, very conceptual. This is actually one where there was a U.S. patent in effect.
We tweaked it a little bit though, but this is a rare circumstance where the inventor actually submitted a patented product that he was already commercializing in another jurisdiction. So this is kind of what it looks like. What would you pay for this thing? I don't know, $10. Next question. Oops, I'm not logged in. Let's see if it lets me in this time. It's not letting me in. I don't know. It's got to be. Unless I got fired. Hopefully that didn't happen. So this is what it looks like. Something that we've actually just implemented that definitely is worthy of mention. Once we get a product fully spec'd out and manufactured, and we actually have the product that's going to be going to stores, we take one more step and we send out to a select amount of the community this actual product for them to play with, answer a set of questions. It's basically like a beta test of the actual product that's like basically done and manufactured. So that's, again, one last way in which we use the community for input. Then the product goes out. Unfortunately, I cannot log in. I wanted to show you one little example of kind of how a product starts and ends, but I'm not going to be able to do that. So one question we get a lot of is like, why would I submit my idea on this website? Like, it's going to get ripped off, or, why do I want to submit it to other people? It is amazing what the power of the community brings to an idea. A lot of people that have kind of their own ideas locked up in their head, they think it's the best, they think no one's done it. The vast majority of the time, at least for what we see, definitely not your experience, but we don't have people submitting like high-tech ideas. With these consumer product ideas, like they're definitely something that is not like refined and implemented. They're very crude. A lot of times they'll submit it and the community will take about a day to give them like 5 different examples of a product that already exists that does it. So there really is this impressive group innovation process that takes place. So that is definitely a huge benefit. I wish I could really show you here. I mean, we're going to do a little this is a starting point. This is one of our most popular products. It's called a pivot power, flexible power strip. And the innovation here is that, let's take it out. Whoever wins this is going to get a damaged package. Sorry.